You're telling me.
I'm excited.
Yeah, good. Yeah, we were thrilled to come back ourselves, so.
Yeah. I've never been on it. I think my first time actually.
Oh,
I'm like so excited, but we gotta go.
awesome.
I'm excited for this ghost tour too, so are you gonna show like the engineering and everything?
This tour doesn't go to the engine room, no. Only the steam and seal, the engineers.
Is there a restroom? It goes to the.
There's one right over, I'll show you.
And it goes to the this room that's called like the doll too, right?
What's that?
It goes to there, it's 400 right?
I didn't understand.
Like dolls and everything.
Dolls?
Yeah.
Oh, that's probably around the corner in the first class children's playroom.
Yeah.
There's some of the original dolls.
That's awesome.
There's booby traps.
What's up, guy? Can you
Hi. Fine. I'll get it.
Looks like you guys are gonna have to stand.
I'll sit into the
Welcome aboard the RMS Queen Mary.
That's so
Don't be
cool,
guys
guys.
here on the car's tour. Staying over here is our lovely assistant Paul. Chicken out. He'll take you somewhere else. Throughout our time together, we are going to gradually make our way down 3 decks. Every time we stop moving, I'm going to tell you a ghost story. I want to be clear, these are not my ghost stories, because I don't have any ghost stories. But they are the stories that were told to us by passengers and crew. Whether or not you believe in the paranormal, I am going to give you just enough history so the stories at least make sense in reference to the ship. Here are the basics. The Queen Mary was owned and operated by the Cunard Line. She made her maiden voyage May 27th, 1956. Her route was between Southampton, England and New York City. At the time, she was the largest and fastest ship ever built, over 81,000 gross tons, capable of speeds up to 32 knots, about 36 miles per hour. With the outbreak of the Second World War, the Queen Mary was drafted into service as a troop transport. She would bring soldiers from the United States to Great Britain, wounded soldiers and prisoners of war from Great Britain back to the United States. On one occasion, carrying over 16,000 people in one crossing. The World War became so important that Hitler offered a $250,000 bounty to any of his German U-boat captains that could sink her. After the war, she continued passenger service for another 20 years before being retired in 1967. The Queen Mary was put up for auction. The city of Long Beach was the highest bidder at just under $3.5 million. December 9th will be the 56th anniversary of her arrival in Long Beach. Throughout the Queen Mary's history, there have been 58 confirmed deaths on board. Now, the reason I say confirmed is because anytime there's a war involved, a lot of information always ends up classified. But we do have records of people passing away from illness, old age, accidents. Sometimes our guests or crew believe they have seen the deceased walking the decks of our ship. Our first ghost story is about the Mauritania room. When the Queen Mary was in service, this was the tourist class main lounge, also known as the Garden Lounge or the Wicker Lounge because of all the wicker furniture that used to be in here. Since the ship came to Long Beach, it is now held over for smaller private events. In 1989, there were some housekeepers who came in to set up for one such event. We came across a lady in a lovely evening gown that they simply described as old-fashioned, sitting in a wicker chair in the middle of the dance floor. She wasn't hurting anything, they just went about their business. But a few moments later, their boss, the head housekeeper, walked in and asked about the lady in the evening gown. They told her, "We don't know what she wants." The head housekeeper went to find out. She addressed the woman several times, but she didn't speak or move at all, so finally, she threatened to call security. While the housekeeper was on the phone, the lady in the evening gown stood up, looked around the room, even smiled. And then both the lady and the wicker chair disappeared. Now, all three women claim to have seen the same thing. This apparition lasted for almost 10 minutes, which makes it our longest recording. Now, folks, as we're moving, we are a very big group. Try to stay close together. I don't need anybody wandering off and becoming one of our ghost stories. I'm walking, you should be walking. I'm running, run for your life. If you have cameras, we encourage you to take a lot of pictures on this tour, and definitely more than one in the same spot, because you never know what's going to appear in one frame and disappear in the next. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask me or Paul. We'll try to help you out. Right now, I just want to give you a few minutes to look around the room, take some pictures, see if you catch some shadow people, light anomalies, or orbs.
What's your name again?
Bill.
Bill?
Yes.
Okay.
If at any point you get dizzy, that's just the ghost passing through you. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
When you're ready to move on, come back to this door. Have at it. Yes, sir.
Because she went back to service as an ocean liner for 20 years after. So maybe they had it for a while. I know there's a section of that carved railing from the ship in a museum in England. It's there. Yeah, I know they have. Do you know about that? Do you know what museum that might be? You remember how they talk about carving the names on the handrails? I know there's a section of that in a British museum.
They deal with binocular plenty of water. These are actual rooms. Yeah, you can just stay here. Yeah, you should want to. I don't know.
I want to.
I know, hey, if you don't know, say what.
Yeah.
I was right there. Yeah.
You kind of feel it. But yeah.
That's creepy.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That room was creepy. That's the ghost in the camp.
You haven't been working all day. You decided to do it now? Really? What are your hours?
Oh, it's black.
The weight room.
There must be an employee with.
Whoa.
Somebody must be in the equipment. It's too new. Look at that. Let's vibrate that back.
Break here in the starboard lounge. Just in the chairs, chatting, nobody else is around, not hurting anything. They claimed they could hear a soft melody coming from this original piano. They were not the first or last people to make that claim. A lot of our hotel guests who were on a late night expedition trying to find an ice machine would wander by and tell us they saw the bench shift on its own, and then they would also hear a soft melody. We don't know who the ghost pianist is, though my money's on Liberace. The music is thought to accompany a ghost that we call the Lady in White. Now, some believe that she was a war bride. Right after World War II ended, the Queen Mary's new job was to bring all of the American GIs' sweethearts from the United Kingdom to the United States. The catch was, the only way that these ladies got off the ship and stayed in the States was if their soldier came to claim them. It's believed the Lady in White was a war bride who was never claimed. No one I've ever talked about it seems to think she died on board, so parapsychologists believe that the devastation of being left behind trapped her spirit here. Whatever the reason, wherever this piano goes, and it's had a few different homes throughout the ship, people will tell us that they see the Lady in White in a wedding dress dancing alone, as if she's waiting for a new partner. Any bachelors in the group? So, anyway, you want to take some photos of the piano or check out the starboard lounge, folks, go right ahead. I just ask you, do not sit at the bench or play the piano, as they're both almost 90 years old and a little fragile. And then gather around me when you're ready to move on.
Are you paying attention?
I just want to get a photo.
Bro,
Oh, wow, they got the little bar.
I would have a drink here.
Bottle bar?
Yeah. I heard you. Imagine taking a dive from here.
Holy crap. No way. That looks so crazy.
Go ahead, take a picture.
It does look like it could be Miami, doesn't it?
Kind of does.
It's not like Manhattan.
Or that.
Oh yeah, and then just hang out like this.
Guys, we should run around. Cigarette ends. Beginnings.
I had a question.
Yes.
So what's the story behind the movie theater?
It's haunted.
I'm just excited for all the stories.
Actually, yeah, when you walk down the hall and you see all the random rectangles of wood that don't match anything,
And dwell.
that's covering all the other ashtrays. You're right. Cigarette
Just feel the hot light.
I feel it.
It's eerie, huh?
It is.
It's just feel like it's cold. It's long and dark. Yeah, go ahead. It feels eerie in here.
Is it?
A little bit. Especially with the humming sound of the machinery.
It's so weird.
It is.
It's like exorcist or poltergeist or I don't know what it is. I'm right here, girls. Getting the photo. Just weird.
Yeah, we closed because of COVID, and then we have been closed since until this past April 1st. And they needed to.
Someone down there. Does it happen? You're not seeing it? Seen nothing? Jesus Christ. No, I sure have photos.
The car is
I think he did say.
So in a moment, I'm going to let you wander out onto the bow. I'm not going to tell you the story out there because I know the wind is going to take my voice and I just can't shout anymore. Now, the reason I'm going to let you check that out is because the bow was the site of an horrific accident during World War II. As I mentioned earlier, the Queen Mary was the fastest ship in her day. Nothing on the water could keep up with her. When she was bringing the soldiers back and forth across the Atlantic, she was mostly on her own. There would be a small military escort of destroyers and cruisers to see her a few miles out of New York just until she got to full speed. A second military escort would wait off the coast of Ireland to bring her safely into Scotland as she slowed down. But for the 5 days in between, she had to rely on her speed and a zigzag cruising pattern. The zigzag was to avoid torpedoes. There was no such thing as missile lock in the 1940s. You fire a torpedo, it only went one way. So to avoid being sunk, the Queen Mary would change direction every couple of minutes. October 2nd, 1942, off the coast of Northern Ireland, there was a collision between the Queen Mary and one of her escorts, the HMS Curaçao. The HMS Curaçao was a 4,000-ton cruiser. The Queen Mary, an 81,000-ton ocean liner. The Curaçao drifted in front of the Queen Mary, and the Queen Mary cut the Curacao in half. In less than a minute, both halves were engulfed in flames. 5 minutes after that, the Curacao was lost beneath the Atlantic Ocean. There was nothing anyone on board the Queen Mary could do to help, for 2 reasons. First, the captain was under strict orders not to stop until all of his charges arrived safely at their final destination. And at the time, there was about 10,000 soldiers on board, far too many lives at stake. The other reason is, to come to a complete stop would have taken the Queen Mary 10 miles. There were 101 survivors. They were rescued by other members of the military escort. But we get reports from our engineering crew and security staff that late at night, or sometimes even if it's just quiet enough, they can hear the twisting of metal, rushing of water, or frantic shouting like something has gone horribly wrong. Parapsychologists believe that it's the 338 sailors who went down with the Curacao reliving the accident over and over again. So the bow is probably the most concentrated area of paranormal energy. Now folks, you can't really wander too much, but there's a very nice backdrop of the harbor and of course the front of the ship if you want to take pictures. And then when you're ready, just join me over here at the fire station. Have it.
I've heard of that.
I know.
That story.
See the submarine.
I didn't even notice that was a submarine. That's fucking awesome.
Why is submarine?
Science. He was just eating up.
It's the ocean,
Yeah. 50 years.
The way Cunard ships were broken up was not by deck, it was by the smoothness of the ride. The first class was the center of the ship because that was the smoothest ride. The captain's class was the stern, the back of the ship. They had to deal with engine vibrations. Tourist class was the bow. The forward end, by far the roughest ride as the Queen Mary bounced across the waves. So the tourist class staircases had 2 major design flaws. They're at a really high angle.
More like the
Watch your step. So once upon a time, there would have been an attendant standing behind this desk to hand you a towel as you went into the swimming pool. And now we've displayed a very nice photograph of the pool that was taken before the maiden voyage when they were doing the Queen Mary speed trials. In this photograph, you see the pool originally had 2 diving boards, one on either side of the slide. Those were taken out within the first 3 months of the Queen Mary's service when they finally discovered that if you try to use a diving board on a moving ship, you may not come down where you think you're coming down. The ceiling is quartz, and of course she's a ship, she's always sitting on water. And I'm told those 2 things are conductors for the paranormal. So parapsychologists believe that directly below me in the old changing rooms, the quartz and the water formed a vortex, a whirlpool of energy that allows the spirits to travel from the other side back into the land of the living. They believe that's why there's so much paranormal activity on board. This was the original entrance to the first-class swimming pool. We've not been able to use it as a pool since the ship came to Long Beach. California State Code dictates pools cannot be deeper than 3.5 feet at the shallow end. The first and cabin class pools were both 6 feet at the shallow end. The cabin class pool was removed and turned into the Royal Theater. The first class pool became a centerpiece for all of our ghost related material. That is not water in the pool, it is a ripple projector intended to make it look creepy. The first class pool ended up doubling as the tourist class pool from the late 1950s until the end of the Queen Mary's run. For the longest time, tourist class passengers didn't have anywhere to swim. So after years of complaints, the Cunard Line decided to make a concession. While the first class passengers were at tea, they would allow the tourist class passengers to use the first class pool. The moment they were done, the pool was drained, cleaned, and refilled for the first class passengers. The 24,000 gallon capacity could be drained or filled in about 25 minutes. Salt water pumped in from the Atlantic Ocean, which you would think would be freezing, but you have to consider the location of the pool. It is sitting directly above the boiler rooms. The boiler rooms could get up to 115 degrees, which made the water very pleasant. Probably our most infamous spirit is believed to haunt the first class pool. A little girl that everyone refers to as Jackie. Somewhere around 7 years old, she's always described as a little girl in a sailor dress with blonde hair that a lot of people think was a cabin class passenger who drowned in the cabin class pool. Thinking is, when that pool was converted to the theater, she upgraded herself to the first class pool. The problem with that theory, of course, is that we have no record of anyone ever drowning on the ship. So if that is true, it would have had to have happened right after World War II during the bride and baby shuttle, because all those records for some reason were sealed. So we don't know exactly what would have taken place during those voyages. Far more popular theory. Parapsychologists believe you don't necessarily have to die someplace to haunt it. Instead of ascending to a higher plane of existence, some spirits may choose to return to an area where they had some of their fondest memories. So Jackie, maybe she learned how to swim in this pool, or just the first time she learned how to dive. This could just be her happy place, and she chose to haunt this forever. Now, we know for sure she has to be a conscious haunting, not a residual haunting, just because of the interactions she's had with all of our guests. People would tell us they would see Jackie popping her head around these columns or up over the railings, kind of like she's playing peekaboo or hide and seek with the guests. There are a few reports of little wet footprints coming out of the pool walking along the deck. Some of the guests told me they thought they felt a cold little hand take hold of theirs. But the most consistent and frequent report we got anywhere on the ship was the sound of a little girl singing in this area. She is a very playful spirit. I'm not sure if you noticed the gigantic dome at the back of our property. That was built specifically to house the Spruce Goose, Howard Hughes' big wooden plane. That left in 1993, it was taken to an Air and Space Museum in McMinnville, Oregon. So for a while, it was just a giant empty dome that occasionally got used as a sound stage. Batman and Robin with George Clooney, I was told that was the Batcave, and Pirates of the Caribbean, every time they went to Tortuga, that was Tortuga. And now Carnival has taken it over for their cruise check-in. But right before the Spruce Goose left, we had a report from a security guard who said he was doing his midnight rounds. He walked into the hangar and saw a little girl in a sailor dress walking along the wing. We yelled up to her, "Kid, what are you doing?" She jumped off the wing and vanished. So Jackie is not only our most popular, but apparently our most powerful spirit. because she is the only one who's been spotted off the ship. Now, folks, you want to take a peek, you want to take a picture, go ahead, and then meet me at the doors.
Sorry, guys.
Oh, that was the first class. Yeah, our deck. Yeah. Now, main deck, A deck, B deck, R, C, D, E, F.
I feel like you probably wouldn't.
People in the room, when they woke up to the doors and dresser drawers opening and closing by themselves. Our Lady in White has actually been spotted in a couple of different first class areas, not just the lobby. Some people told me that they saw her dancing in the Queen's salon. Others told me they had a drink with her in the observation bar. Now, I don't know how many drinks they had before she joined them, but that's what they claim. Back in 2017, one of our security guards, Gary, was running around telling anyone who would listen he had just had his very first paranormal experience in the decade that he'd worked here. He said he was doing his morning rounds, so 6, maybe 7 a.m. He's walking through one of the kitchens. This big cart of trays rolled out in front of him. He wanted to yell at somebody, hey, that's not safe, but there was nobody else in the kitchen. The cart turned to the left. It continued to roll uphill. It made a right and a left around a corner and came to a stop on its own. Gary is now highly suspicious of every cart on board the ship. Believe it or not, folks, I'm not here to convince you that the ship is haunted. I'm merely relaying the stories, and I'll let you draw your own conclusions on what's real and what's not. We've made it down to our deck. It is closing time. I'll let you out these doors in just a moment. I'm going to open up the doors if you want to run down the stairs instead of taking the elevator down to 1. I think the coffee shop is open until 6 if you did want to head back up there real quick. You still have questions? I have about 5 minutes we can hang out and chat. But other than that, folks, if you enjoyed our time together, again, my name is Bill. If you hated this tour, my name is Fred. Thank you for coming. Have a wonderful afternoon. Have a lovely evening. Thank you.
That's cool.
Did you say there was a coffee shop around here?
Yeah, there
I'm
is.
down, let's go. Where's
I mean, Thomas.
Thomas?
What are you doing?
It is cool. It's an amazing thing.